Okay, here we are. I should make sure that my sound is good because it's not always set up. Mic? No. Why is it opposite? Mic? Speaker? Yeah, that's right. I think because the speaker in my computer is so terrible, I have to use headphones, but then I'm also using the Yeti mic. Anyhow. So I have more thoughts on this topic of Christian civilization, and a lot of the inspiration for this is, what's up, Phlebas? I have a good accuser here, a gift of an accuser here. Love you. Sam Spency, what up, buddy? Oh, hello. Mitchell, good grief. We got a lot of friends here. John, hello. Yasberg, I don't know. Do I know who you are? Maybe. Are you Waves of Obsession? What's going on? Who are you? So I was listening to PVK has it's a members only video with I mean, what a name. Mandy, good to see you. Len. Spencer, no, the name is Vesper Stamper. Vesper Stamper. I mean, what a name, dude. Dumir. Lucas, man. Lots of friends. By the way, Lucas, I plugged your talk with Jason in the comments of this video with PVK. PVK doesn't pay attention to what I say though. So because sorcery came up, there were two parts so far of the conversation that I didn't like. One was she said she's more on the sola scriptura side of the spectrum within Orthodoxy, which I'm just like, come on. I mean, depending on what you mean by that, it was a passing comment, but like respecting scripture, cool. But sola scriptura is smart dumb. That's my succinct cliff notes of it. People won't like that, but whatever. It's rationalist. Rationalism, you can't reason with a rationalist that rationalism is irrational. And one of my oldest Lukeisms. And then the other one was sorcery. There was a passing quip about sorcery being condemned, and I immediately thought of Jason, and then Lucas, your conversations with him. But something she just said, I should look at some of my comments here because they're at the very end, or the last quarter, they're talking about Kingsnorth, and Paul asks explicitly, like, what advice would you give Kingsnorth if he watches this? And Paul said he probably will. So Paul must have communication with Paul. Paul's talking to Paul Kingsnorth about all this stuff. The main comment that I wanted to talk about that I left is this one at 156, thereabouts. She said they were talking about kind of Orthodoxy versus Protestantism and being schismatic or not. And she said, and Paul, I think Paul PVK assumes eventually, and who knows, he's maybe right, that Orthodoxy in America will eventually have to deal with all the differences of opinion and will perhaps become ideologically schismatic, which is what Protestantism is. Protestantism is there's lots of ways you can schism. You can schism over any sort of distinction you can make. You can, who's this? We met in Olympia. Oh, dude, I know who you are. We were like play wrestling, whatever, right? Okay, got it. Sweet. It's so nice to put like an avatar to like, oh, I've met you. I know what you look like. That's cool. Okay. So yeah, Paul thinks that eventually the Orthodox in America will schism over ideas, really, because this is what I see. This is one of the things that came, one of the negatives that came. And again, will it be a negative or is it just an opportunity for growth? Pause, interjection. listen to Sam Tiedemann's Transfigured, 3588, whatever his YouTube handle is, most recent conversation or interview with Father John Baer about his most recent Gregory of Nyssa. Well, it's maybe his only Gregory of Nyssa translation, but he translated a work from Gregory of Nyssa, and it's really good. And it's also annoying to me because I left about 10 comments, and they just disappeared. YouTube just, I don't know. I don't know if it was some sort of weird error on my phone because I was doing it while I was cutting a bunch of logs yesterday. But it's so annoying. Thankfully, I screenshot a bunch of them to share with Sam so I can maybe retroactively go back in and copy them all, which seems annoying because I don't have time for that stuff. But that Gregory of Nyssa talk, I feel like it's really good. And it gets at a lot of things that I very much love, which I think is very related to Origin, about I think it's about really ontology and how the universe and God and man work. There's some really great lines in there that I think are really enlightening and helpful that stuck out to me. Like there were these salient lines that just popped, and then I made comments riffing on them because I think they help explain things that I'm always trying to talk about, or at least to me they did. Which is very much like, because this is my understanding of reality. This is a line from Joe Rogan quoting it's an old samurai book, but it's just like, once you see the way broadly, you'll see it in everything. Chef's kiss. 'Cause it's true. I mean, you could also say, once you see God, you'll see God in everything. You know, if I ascend to the heights, you're there. If I go to the depths, you're there. Is God this terrible thing that happened? Is God in it? The problem with pain. Maybe once you see God in everything, the problem with pain goes away. Because you want, and that Gregory of Nyssa talk is really good on this because one of the points, I'll just say one of the points that I remember that Father Baer talks about is that riffing on Genesis, and my boy Chezi, I asked him to watch it, so maybe I'll interact with Chezi. I don't know if we'll record it about this point, or maybe Yosef if Yosef watches this, but I didn't reach out to Yosef with this. But Jacob and I don't talk about these things. I talk to Chezi and Yosef because Jacob just thinks I'm dumb and tells everyone not to listen to me and that I should shut up. But one of the ways that man and God are different, a distinction, at least in the Genesis account, is that God is uncreated, right? He is unified in one. But man, when he's created, male and female, they're made male and female. And so, and they're made out of stuff. And so fundamentally, his point with all of it is that fundamentally, transformation and change is fundamental to what it means to be a human being, which is a really important thing to think about because it gets at transformation and suffering and becoming as something that is intrinsic to humanity. This is the further up and the further in. I don't believe that there is some static Hellenistic understanding of perfect end. There is no heaven that lacks the lack. And I don't know that even God ultimately lacks the lack, which I think is what Peter Rollins' new book is about. So that point is very interesting. But anyhow, back to Vesper Stamper, Paul Kingsnorth, and Christian civilization. And so she gives the advice. She talks about, she says, Orthodoxy is a big tent. And then she said this line, which she said, the inside is bigger than the outside. And yeah, the old will pass away. That's part of transformation. You know, your body. you know, it's constantly in flux and change. The old pass away, eating, you know, all that. And so sorry, I'm getting distracted. So the outside is bigger than the inside, or the outside is smaller than the inside. And what that made me think of is infundibular. That line that I just love is probably my biggest takeaway from the book, John Crowley's book, Little Big. But it also, it's the same idea of C.S. Lewis in The Last Battle, and at the end when I forget the names of the character, but there's the donkey and there's the like scraggly lion, and they're con men, they're manipulators, and I think they basically con people into going into they build this fake shack, and they say that it's Aslan, right? Because he dresses up. They find a lion skin. No, that's what happens. It's a monkey. It's a monkey and a donkey, and they find a lion skin at the beginning of the book, and they dress up the donkey in the lion skin, and they say it's Aslan, and they convince people to go in this shack, and they do it for some sort of gain. I can't remember what happens. Oh, it's the TARDIS Doctor too. Oh, I don't know this. That's cool. And Mandy said that too. So, but the thing that happens, so these people are manipulating. It's Mammon. It's Mammon. They are pretending to be God for a transaction, which is a lot of what religion comes. Then this is why Peter Rollins will say that the what is it? He's always talking about the libidinal pursuit of the lack, and a lot of what religion, the Satan is what promises to fill the lack. And he says that grace is the freedom from the libidinal pursuit of the lack, the thing that will make you whole and complete. And so Mammon always is trying to sell you the lack. If you do this, you'll be okay. If you do this, you'll be happy. A lot of self-improvement or exercise stuff or any sort of thing that capitalism and consumerism can sell you, most of the marketing for that is riffing on or not riffing, is keying on and abusing this libidinal pursuit of the lack, this thing, the whatever shaped hole that's inside you. Like, if I just do this, I'll be okay. If I just accomplish this, if I'm okay. And we all know it's true. It's that famous, or it's not true. It's that famous Jim Carrey speech from like the Golden Globes. And he's just like, when I come here to accept this Golden Globe, it's not just some guy. It's 2-time Academy Award winner Jim Carrey, and he's just pointing out in a hilarious way the absurdity of the libidinal pursuit of the lack, like, if I just win an Oscar, I'll be okay. If I just make $1 million, I'll be okay. If I just get married, I'll be okay. If I just accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, I'll be okay. What if you do the thing that you think is going to make you okay, and then you find out you're not okay? So Rollins says grace is the freedom from the libidinal pursuit of the lack. And he says very often what most churches end up doing is being the Satan. They promise freedom from the libidinal pursuit of the lack, which is what the Satan does, psychoanalytically. So where did I start on all that? The lack, politics. Jacob did not come to my house last week. I was gone. I was gone the weekend Jacob came, so I was unable to see him. Okay, back to Vesper, Paul Kingsnorth. Oh, Orthodoxy, big tents, infundibular. We're back. Little Big. We're back. We're doing the weave. I put Trump in the title for clicks. So this is my weave. Did I learn the weave from Trump, or did Trump learn it from me? I don't know. But I thought all of her advice to Paul Kingsnorth was fantastic. So infundibular. Let's wrap that up. Sorry. Infundibularity is that the inside is bigger than the outside. saving the appearances. You will look at a thing, and this is stuff we all know, but we don't know we know it because we haven't translated it propositionally and narratively to our understanding. We don't have the fullness of understanding because it's kind of how like Matthew McConaughey said, and this is very much randos in PBK, that when he was trying to write his book Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey, he said he kept trying to make the book more generic to appeal to a broader audience. He wanted to appeal to everyone, but he found out he couldn't do it. It just kept being crappy. And then he decided to make it more personal. And in making it more personal, he found it to be more universal. Because the inside is bigger than the outside. You think this is just one limited thing, but no, it's infinite. The person is infinite. And so I think that's what all these things are symbolically telling you if you have like these works of fiction. And so that's awesome. That's brilliant. And then I think ultimately that's wrapped up in what is becoming my favorite summary of everything that I believe about my religious practice and the cosmos. Receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. Receive what's become who you are, which is another line, which is another great point from the Gregory of Nyssa talk of God, what was that? I want to find that because it was so good. I think I saved the comment. I have all these on my phone. So YouTube, you can't keep me down, man. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You ain't never gonna keep me down. There's too many comments I'm sharing. So not that one. That's a good point. This one is on sin. Oh, Father Bear said, so like at 37:45, maybe this is what I was thinking of. He said, I am inclined to think the focus of these writers, like Gregory of Nyssa and the Cappadocian Fathers and a lot of the early church fathers, he said, is more on what is happening individually. But dang it, look at this. See? The comment says, read more. I didn't expand it. Do you think I know what I said in the rest of the comment? No, I didn't. It's unbelievable. YouTube, why? Why are you doing this to me? All right, let's move on from infundibularity. And then what is one of the other comments that she made to PBK? Ooh, this is another point I really want to make. And then I'll probably open this up because I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this today because I have a bunch of things to get done before this weekend. Because my wife has special plans for me this weekend, which seems nice. I don't know what it is. It's a surprise. I like surprises, and she doesn't. So she does fun surprise things for me, and I don't do fun surprise things for her. So one of the things she says, advice to Paul Kingsnorth, she said, I want to see you. This I have to go back and edit it. I want to see you make more art. It's time to pull back from the nonfiction. And that makes me think of this clip from Joaquin Phoenix that maybe I'll play in here. It's from his, or I'll just summarize it. I have it on my channel. I clipped it on my channel because I went back to find it and I couldn't find it on YouTube. But it's from his first Joker movie, which apparently the second one sucks. That's what I've heard. And the first one was brilliant. One of my favorite films. And it's true art. It was wonderful. But something that came up a lot with that is because the movie is so violent. Joaquin Phoenix there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of chitter chatter about if films that are violent incite violence, they make people violent. And Joaquin Phoenix said, okay, I don't want to talk about this because he'd done a lot of research on the topic, he said. And he said that in his research, he says, this is the only thing I'll say about it, and we'll talk more off air about it. And he said that it's his belief that art, any sort of art, does not make people violent, but talking about the violence in the art makes people violent. There's something profound in that I still haven't gotten the words to talk about, but I think it's related to Vesper's encouragement. I was going to say admonition. Is it encouragement or admonition? It's probably a little of both to Paul Kingsnorth to make more art. And it's something that's come up in the TLC a lot about how long can we sit around and talk about things versus just making things, because that's a little bit of the difference between a culture, or you could maybe say an anti-culture, that is an attempt to be founded on ideological conversation, or even dialogos, maybe about ideas, versus something that's creating something. And I think that's also connected to the Jonathan Peugeot idea of you can't found a civilization on protest. You have to found it on creation, a sacrifice. Any true culture or civilization needs to be founded on sacrifice and creation. That's what it is, art. So you have to sacrifice something to create something. Protest requires no sacrifice, or maybe there's a hidden sacrifice, because you can just sit in your ivory tower and you can be an armchair expert. Sorry, Dax Shepard. And you can just send out your proclamations about what's wrong with the world, and you don't have to create anything. Thank you, Clara. That's sweet. Yeah, but I mean, but is porn art, Nico? I mean, wow. I don't even want to broach that subject. So I think there's something to that of maybe instead of sitting around and critiquing culture all the time, you should be making culture, which is creating, and not in a propagandistic way, because then you're trying to manipulate culture. You're, again, and that's that great Vine Deloria quote from Graham Pardun of art is fundamentally, by its nature, opposed to idolatry. So this, I don't know if you remember, Clara, but this Vesper Stamper conversation is fantastic. And is Paul Kingsnorth too liberal for TLC? I mean, no. I'm in TLC. Like, I don't. I think, and Chad talked about this recently in a live stream. Chad and I are very similar this way. Like, temperamentally and intellectually, it doesn't get more liberal than me. Part of that is just openness. So, like, even if you do the Peterson Big Five thing, like I don't know what I am, 96 percentile open or something. And I think that's probably low. I don't know how it got low. Like, I don't know how you can be more open than me and not be just, I don't know, schizophrenic, maybe. Because as the last 10 years of my life, I've had little glimpses, little pinpricks of like, oh, I can see how I could go crazy. And I just, thank God, there's a lot of natural graces that keep me from that, like a wife and a family and stuff. Because left to my own devices, I might go crazy. But I don't think Kingsnorth is too liberal for TLC. And Vesper Stamper spoke to this wonderfully. She said, here's another line that she said from that talk that I thought was brilliant. She said, where is it? She said she's jealous for Paul Kingsnorth, and fellow artists to not be co-opted by any movement, especially politics. Yeah, you can't be. If you are co-opted by politics that have and I think politics, this is why I say politics is the opiate of the masses, is largely, most politics is either or, and it's about winning, and it's zero sum, and it's about having a preconceived notion of what needs to happen, which is all emanation. It's like we need to top down impose what we want for the world on the world for its good, and it doesn't allow for, like, what a good politician would be, like a good parent, which is to be a non-interventionist, let the thing grow, husband, like as minimally as possible intervene. And it takes wisdom to do that as minimally as possible. Your main job is to get out of the way. It's just like with vision. In order to see, you need to inhibit a lot. As a good leader, you should get out of people's way. It's enabling them to have their own agency and autonomy. It's not to like dictate what they have to do. It's to foster in them their own being and creativity. That's what a good parent does. That's what a good politician should do. And so, no, I absolutely don't think Paul Kingsnorth is too liberal for TLC. We need a lot of people like that. We need all the multiplicity of what's in the TLC. Those who are very top down and want to dictate what needs to happen. Like I listened to Father Eric's Monday live stream because I saw in the thumbnail my boy Jess was in there, and I see Jess, I click because he my boy. And I put some comments in there of where I Mark Lefebvre was in there too. And I put a comment in there where I fundamentally disagree with Mark. I haven't got a notification that he saw it, but I would say this to Mark. I mean, I would have a conversation with Mark about this. I can't even remember what the comment was, but a lot of and there was another cat in there from Australia talking about how the greatest strength he sees of Catholicism is the magisterium. And I was just like, okay, I mean, you run your household however you want to, but I fundamentally disagree. So anyhow, I'm rambling now a lot, and I have talked for about a half hour. What else do I want to talk about? Let me see. I'm going to open this up. I do want to talk about this because I told some guys, now that I'm 26 minutes in, that I was in a chat about, I made some comments about, and maybe this is good. I may be seeing my own hypocrisy or my own concerns with this, but I'll talk about Trump some and his election and concerns that I have regarding. So here we go. Is this too liberal for TLC, Clara? For concerns that I have in the wake of a Trump presidency, and what I mean by, and this is why I said in there, like fascism as other disgust. And really it's in the Jonathan Haidt terminology. I've spoke about this before, that Jonathan Haidt says that in his book, I think it's it's about politics, I think, and why good people disagree, but it's essentially about politics. And he says that most of politics and ideological disagreement really comes down to temperament and whether someone is conservative or liberal in their temperament. And a lot of this is TLC stuff. So like if someone is conservative in their temperament, they have a disgust impulse to the other. So like somebody disagrees with you or somebody's on the other side of some political line than you, or it could be anything. It could be cultural disgust. It could be ethnocentrism. It could be racism. It could be like that person is a different skin pigmentation than me. And if your reaction to the other, whatever the category is, fill in the blank. This person is other than me. Any distinction could be sexism. It could be ageism. Could be all the isms. If someone is other than you, if you're, I don't know, not even intellectually, probably, but like your bodily reaction is disgust. And it's for like a purity. It's a call for purity, that we need to purify the household, the nation, the city, the tribe from this disgusting other. That then you're a conservative. And listen, there's good and bad on both sides of this. Like if you have a cell body and there's an intruding pathogen, you have immunities to end macrophages or whatever to get rid of the pathogen that's come into your bloodstream. And then white blood cells go and attack the pathogen, and they build immunities to it to get rid of the other thing. But the thing that's crazy though is that sometimes, and maybe this is like what poisons are, or I had a child, we went to get a wart last night, frozen at like the doctor. And one of the things that you can do for warts, you can freeze them with nitrogen, liquid nitrogen, or you can put like salicylic acid on it, I think is the acid. Or you can put what I used to do. See this? My camera's probably not good enough. I have a scar right here. Because what I used to do is I would clip them down with the clippers when I was growing up because we didn't have money to go to the doctor. And then my dad would put dehorning paste on it that we used to put on cattle, after you like burned their horns off so the cattle don't have horns, and then you put dehorning paste on it to like burn into their thing to like stop the horn from growing. We would put that on ourselves to get rid of warts, and it would burn into your flesh and stop the wart from growing. But one of the things you can put on a wart is this thing called Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice, kind of a fun name, right? But I didn't even realize until last night the doctor told me that Beetlejuice it's a medicine that we have derived from beetles, because these beetles have a poison or some sort of secretion that they can put out on an enemy, and it will burn. It will chemically burn their enemy, and what it does on your skin is it starts bubbling up. It creates these bubbles, but it burns away things, and so the poison has become the cure. Death, maybe? Trampling down death by death, the thing that was to be feared and that was scary, the Tao, right? In chaos, if you become overly totalitarian and you want a bunch of order because you're conservative, and chaos is scary and we need structure, but then what can happen with that is you become authoritarian and totalitarian, and you have too many prescriptions, and the thing that you meant to bring life brings death, and then through the chaos and through the outside, the different thing, because it has to be, because you've enclosed off everything so tightly that it has to come from the outside, your salvation will emerge. So I don't know. Like I'm concerned with because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and the Pat Buchanan kind of moral majority, and I would say it was largely a cultural purity thing. It was a moralist. I mean, again, Christian Smith describing Western Tom Holland secular Christianity, blue church Christianity, he described it as moral therapeutic deism, right? So it's therapeutic. It promises to fill the lack, to give you it's therapy, it'll make you better, right? It'll give you health. It'll make you better, right? So it's therapeutic. It's moralistic, because we primarily think of sin. This is another thing that Father Bear Video is very good at, is he talks about sin and the fall in a way that is very helpful. He says it's not so much a fall from the past, it's a fall from the future. You've got to open up your mind. Free your mind, the rest will follow. So that's very good. So it's not moralistic, at least in terms of sin. It's almost impossible for a Westerner to not think of sin in moralistic categories. But what if sin just has to do with missing the mark, which is inherently part of transformation? Because if sin just has to do with the transformation and change, so Father Bear was talking about like a child in a sense is missing the mark of what it means to be the fullness of humanity, because they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't self-reflect. Part of that is what it means to be human, the fullness of humanity. So in a sense, a baby is a sinner, because they're missing the mark. But listen, when that hits your ear, if you're a Westerner, and I say that a baby is a sinner, you're going to think about it automatically like a fish is wet in moralistic categories. And I would argue we should do less of that. So moral therapeutic deism, and then deism is the God that's distant and divorced, the God who isn't, once you see the way broadly, you'll see it in everything, and where shall I go is to escape from your presence. The God who is inside and outside, receive with meekness the implanted word. Deism is the God who's distant and divorced, the clockmaker universe. He just created the universe and stepped back, and he's not present. Where is God? He's playing hide and seek. That's the game God most likes to play. Chess. God, what a great Jessism. That's a Jessism I like. It's that what is God's favorite game to play? Hide and seek. Because it allows for your becoming. Why do you do that with a little child? Object permanence. Scary. You're gone. No, you're here. You're gone. You're here. Light and dark. So I don't know. That kind of the Jonathan Haidt, why do good people disagree about politics, moral majority, culture war stuff. This is what I was saying to my friends is, all the conservatives now, we lament. I'll put myself in that category. I grew up that category, and I do think of myself as a conservative. I also think of myself as a liberal. Weird, right? Another great John Bear thing. What did he say? It was the riffing on the Greek. He described the human being as the what was it? It was one of those antinomies. It was like a contradiction. I was just like, that's so perfect. It's right in my alley. I forgot what it was, and I don't have to comment anymore. YouTube, get your shit together. Hey babe, there's 2 half sandwiches in the oven for you, okay? I'm live streaming. Huh? Huh?
It's ready to go.
Yeah. Late school day here. Okay, John Bear, politics, moral majority, culture war stuff. And even now, so what was I saying? Fascism, disgust factor. But this is why I say both political parties now, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're both conservatives because they have a disgust factor versus the other. Oh, wokeism. I think the culture war stuff, because wokeism is like the culture war. We need to get rid. A lot of the extreme leftists are like, we need to get rid of Trump. Anybody that supports Trump, anybody that, disagrees with us, and they're a fascist, they're a bigot, they're a, they whatever. Fill in the blank. That's a disgust factor. You want to purify versus the evil other. And then on the right, you'll have that too. We need to get rid of all these woke monsters. That's the woke right that Benjamin Boyce spoke about brilliantly with, I think he's talked about this with many people, but he spoke about it with, was it Seabax that had the conversation with Benjamin Boyce? The woke right. Because again, you can't get out of the frying pan into the fire. Welcome to America. The last remaining acceptable form of bigotry is against those with whom you disagree. This is what Jordan Peterson says, and I fundamentally believe that a good leader will do is that you have to reconcile with those you disagree with. It's like with your wife. If you are in a household, a house divided cannot stand, right? So if you are in a household, love you, baby, bye. If you are in a household with your wife and you win a fight, do you win in a zero-sum way? No, you don't. You're still losing because you have to love each other. You have to feel like you're both winning. It doesn't mean you can't disagree. It doesn't mean you can't have conflict, but you have to come together. And without vision, the people perish. You have to come together under a common vision. What is that? It's not just winning and eradicating the other on either side, or we'll both be damned. An eye for an eye until everyone is blind. And a true leader would unify that. And so I see any of the all the libs of TikTok bullshit since the election where conservatives are just I don't know what it's called. There's some term for this. My son was telling me, who are just enjoying watching liberals meltdown after a Trump win. That's disgusting. Matt Walsh, you're kind of whatever it is, your whole shtick that you do, even though there's maybe bits of truth in it, I want nothing to do with it. It's gross. It's disgusting. And guess what? I'm disgusted by that, but I don't want to exclude you. I will condemn your behavior because we wage war not against persons, but against powers and principalities. Whatever principality is manifesting through Matt Walsh to mock Ben Shapiro will do this crap, but there's people on the left that do it. Bill Maher does it. You have to. This is what I'll say as Christian, as speaking as a Christian. and then maybe I'll close with this, because this is my concern. Call it fascism, call it whatever you want. Disgust against the other is unacceptable for a Christian. It's absolutely unacceptable, because as a Christian, you're called to love the other. Oh, one more plug. So, Tayo, are you here, Tayo? Tayo and Chad spoke with Elizabeth Ofield. Is that her name? Oldfield? Offield? And it was a really good conversation. She's a really good conversation partner. It was excellent. You guys did a great job. It was fantastic. But one of the things that she said in there was her understanding of hell, which she got from C.S. Lewis in The Great Divorce. And she said, one of the best ways to maybe understand hell is that it's a place where you, how did she say it? Do you remember, Tayo? Oldfield. Hell is a place where you increasingly can't stand to be around people that are different than you. Or, God, what did she say? I know I copied it here somewhere because I made the comment, but I probably deleted it from my phone. I want to go find it now. I'm going to go find it. Sorry, I got to suffer through this. Subscriptions, Friday Morning Nameless. Okay, where's my comment? Should be at the top because it's awesome. Paul just says lovely. Come on, Paul. PVK, do a little more work, okay? It was something like that. Yeah, that's right. Guess what? YouTube probably deleted my comment from here too. Why does YouTube hate me? Like, what is it? It's not in here. Okay, YouTube, what the hell? Why? I mean, seriously, that's concerning. Why would YouTube be deleting my comments? Because I'm talking about like loving your enemy? Because I'm not being ideological? Because that doesn't feed the algorithm? Because everyone wants to feed into their fear? This is the death drive thing that I was talking about with my friends. I don't know. Neil, can I get a Luke Thompson amen? I don't know what that was. Where is my damn comment? Or maybe I had it. Okay, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm a hypocrite. Did I say it in the live chat? I maybe did. Maybe I'm. Sorry, this is not good live streaming. I don't think I have it in here. I think I made the comment. But yeah, whatever. Metanoia is sacred was another great Chadism. She asked Chad, what is sacred? And he said, I think metanoia is sacred. God, what an answer. That was a good one, Chad. Okay. But yeah, I think that is hell. Hell is a place where you, if reality, what I call Christianity, is forgiveness and loving your enemies and Father, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. If what it means to be saved is to become a forgiver, because if everyone forgives everyone, guess what? There are no enemies. And the world will live as one. If that's what salvation is, then hell is where you don't forgive your enemies. A good leader will lead into that. And a kind of Christian nationalism that doesn't have enemy love is not a Christian. It's not a Christianity I want any part of. All right, I'm going to open this up now. And I will look at comments. All right. Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. It's annoying. YouTube, it's annoying. Stop deleting my comments. I mean, seriously, in Sam's conversation with Father Bear, I made about 10 comments. None of them are in there. And then this comment. Well, like, why is my comment with Elizabeth Oldfield gone? Stupid. All right.
Hello.
John, what up, buddy?
Jillian, how you been?
I've not been too well. I've been busy but good. I've been busy but happy because I'm trying to get a bunch of. I'm building like a wood window well, essentially, for a basement window, and I have all these 6x6 oak logs that I am doing a bunch of cutting on to make half laps. It's essentially where you cut out like half the log on both sides and then you just lap them together to make like a joint for the corners. and it was going to cost me a lot of money to have the sawmill do all that, and so I was like, well, I'll just do it. And it's a lot of work. I mean, there's a reason it costs a lot of money because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. You were talking about comments. I have a bunch of notes, but you were just talking about comments. That happens to me all the time, where comments will be like, somebody will leave a comment and then it'll be hidden, and I won't see it until like later when I click on the video to rewatch it. I like to rewatch my videos, and then
Nice.
Or like if I'll go to the studio section, sometimes I'll see a comment there, and it's so annoying because like sometimes I feel like people think I'm ignoring them, or it's also kind of nice though, because sometimes I do want to ignore comments, so it's like an excuse. But
yeah, you know what is funny? Like, doesn't that seem? I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. Is that YouTube, like the comments that are really trying to unify and acknowledge distinction without division? Like YouTube will just delete those because like that doesn't keep everyone pissed off and like angry clicking and mad.
I imagine there's some of that. I don't know. I have to, we have to be careful not to go crazy in this regard. But
here's the thing: it's maybe not even something. This is like the conspiracy thing, where people say, don't put on something conspiracy when it could just be like idiocy or whatever. But as someone who's a spiritual person, I do think powers and principalities are operation here. So there's lots of things that human beings aren't trying to do, but yet they're doing.
Yeah,
because
and we know that it happens like in terms of shadow banning, like when people search and stuff. Like, I don't know, I think my channel might be shadow banned to some degree. I have like over 1,000 subscribers, but my videos get like 10 or 15 views.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I think that's kind of why though the subscriber account or the
I think
count doesn't really matter.
Maybe it's that most people just use like the home thing and they just trust the algorithm. It's like I try to avoid the home screen and just try and stick to the subscription feed,
Yeah. I do a little of both because to me, like the subscriptions, it's like the DAO, right? The subscription feed is the order. It's the stuff you like. You got to leave room for that.
Yeah.
For the algorithm to get. The algorithm is what gave us Paul Vanderklay, man.
It's true. Yeah, no, that's a good way of framing it. I think I'm a big fan of the DAO. Every time you say that, I'm like, woohoo!
Well, I haven't read this book yet. Somebody said, Cal. Do you know Cal?
Yeah.
Cal has spoken to me.
Well, but not well.
He's spoken to me about this a bunch, and I know somebody else is reading it, and I have it. My mother-in-law will probably buy it for me for my birthday because that's my mother. Like the easiest way for my mother-in-law to buy me things is I just have. I hate having this, but I have an Amazon wish list, and I just have books, and so she'll buy me some like expensive book, and that's usually what I get.
Nice. Sometimes I buy books just because I like to have them, but I don't. I don't like read very much at all, to be honest.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. It's rare if I read something, like even it's funny because I was gonna say this to Graham Pardon the other day because he runs his Substack, and I read his last one. I read most of it. I skimmed some of it, but I was gonna send him a little note, like a text or something. He doesn't have a smartphone, but he does have a phone, so he can read text. Where I was gonna be like, this is a huge compliment that I actually read your thing because I don't read very much stuff.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like even if I have certain chat, like I've a Signal chat is what I use to chat with a lot of people. And I'm in this one, for example, I'm in this one with Sam. And for whatever reason, this has been a perpetual bane of all of my group chats. I'm a big voice memo person. And I'll get in Signal chats where everybody else is text-based, and it's just walls of text and text and text. Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know who you must have a computer-based job to be able to just sit there and read that much text all day. I can't sit in front of a screen that much. I got shit to do.
Yeah, for real. The text reframes your consciousness, but to avoid the deep ramble in that regard, like, yeah, I definitely feel that. Like I did that just the other day. I'm in a group chat and I said, hey, anybody want to do a call?
Yeah.
And then we did a call and recorded it, and I'm going to post it in the group chat later.
Oh, sweet.
Because it's like, I think a thing with group chats as well is that there's no like recursiveness, such that like there's no reflecting. It's like somebody who never sleeps almost.
Hmm.
It's like you need to take a sec to be like integrate the things that have been said,
Yeah.
and like, but also just I'm a big fan of like, like group chats. Like I think it's cool how in the Grail Country Discord, for example, there's the voice chat and people
Yeah.
can hop in the voice chat there. Good.
Yeah. Maybe I'll hop on there today if there are people around, because that's another one that I watched. Because to your point, most of the content that I consume, if there's content that I'm watching, it's TLC stuff. Like that's basically all I watch outside of
Mhm.
every once in a while I need a break because it's just too heady. But there's been a bunch recently. So here's some plugs. Cassidy recently had a really great talk with Richard Rowland, which I need to re-listen to because there was a lot of really great stuff in there, which hopefully the few comments I made are still there. But I was like busy sawing stuff, and so you like half hear things because you're just like listening, and then you're like, but that was awesome. There was Seaback spoke with Matt C, which was really good. Because Matt C has given me like when he's in here in a live stream, he'll give me crap in text about like wanting to chat in the Grail Country, just like voice rooms, and because I'd love to talk to him after that. I felt like he had some really brilliant. They were really enlightening things to me about. I don't even know the terms. The terms were new to me, but like crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and evolutions that have happened in that. Yeah, that one was super good. Tayo agrees. So
I want to have a conversation with you. So we've kind of been. It's just been like.
Have we not recorded one?
I don't think we have. Yeah, I've hopped on a bunch of the live streams.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably why I'm confused about it. Yeah, I'm hoping after this week things settle down for me because I've been pretty preoccupied with this project I'm working on. But after I get this, I'm hoping to get most of it done this weekend, and then I think things will chill. But I don't know. It's also not true. I saw like in some tourist store once, I saw this coaster that said, in your 30s, what your 30s feel like, which I'm not in my 30s anymore, but what your 30s feel like is you say things will calm down in a couple weeks, and then it's just like that until you die. You just never, again, man, it's the libidinal pursuit of the lack. Yeah. 2 weeks, things will be calm. But I don't know that they are. I think it's probably like, it probably is that thing. It's learning to walk on water. Like you either learn to be okay with the busyness or you just live in the perpetual hell of the Protestant work ethic.
That reminds me of when you were talking with Jess about Leviathan in terms of walking on the water, because that's the same image, right? Is walking on Leviathan.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I had written down because that conversation that I just recorded, which I just mentioned, one of the things I was talking about the Ouroboros in that quite a bit. So I was thinking maybe, poking you, see if you had anything else to say about that. It's a very interesting, like, thing. It's like the right relationship with Leviathan. It just came to mind in the context with, like you could almost think about like the work cycle or like the next week will be better as this eternal recurrence of Leviathan, modern job lifestyle, but also just in general, there is kind of something where that chaos is always, like the Leviathan is always with us in a way. And it's like, I remember you said each in its own time at one point. It's kind of, so like, I don't know, that's a little bit of a mosaic. It's an interesting thing to me, because how do we, Leviathan is kind of the enemy, right? It's the Satan. I kind of connect those two, but it's, love thy enemy, right? So how do we, yeah, I don't know if I didn't really have a pointed question. It's more so just like you kind of reminded me of that as something I've been thinking about.
Well, I don't. Something that I've said before is that, sorry, my coffee coughs,
Oh, dude.
is that I think in the eschaton, or the new heavens and the new earth, or I'm about to have a Elizabeth Oldfield cough moment. That there was like
Yeah.
there was a moment in there where she coughed, and I thought they were gonna like cut it out or do something, where I was just like, oh no, Tayo and Chad just killed Elizabeth Oldfield. Like, she was coughing so hard. It's the hardest cough I've ever seen on YouTube. It was unbelievable.
All good. No worries.
So one of the things that I've said, to quote myself, is in the eschaton, or in the Perusia, or whatever, new heavens and new earth, when everything is, when, as Radiohead says, when everything's in its right place.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You know, Leviathan has a right place, and it's in the
Yes.
picture. It's in the picture somewhere. Maybe it's at the
Yes.
bottom.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
at the
right. And so nothing changes and everything changes. And this is why I think kind of it's the same, it's connected to the same idea that I think a lot of this has to do with human consciousness and your own. Father Bear talks about this really well in that talk with Sam too, is that a lot of, like, there's nothing, this is a little bit of the Gnostic heresy, is like there's nothing wrong with the body and your animal urges. What a lot of is wrong is your mental things. And he used the illustration of like fasting. And fasting, this is why fasting is such a good example of this, is like, I was just talking to my wife about this the other day, but you can go a long time without food. You really can. Like, you don't need it. That's what your body is. That's why you have fat.
especially if you're fat. Like some
Right.
fat people have gone like, I'm pretty sure, a year or two. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's some guy, Rogan likes to talk about him, who was very morbidly obese, and he didn't eat for over a year or something. And it just basically, because that's what it's supposed to do. But the thing is like, so you'll have this is how Father Bear talked about this, because a human being is heaven and earth, right? So you have this animal part of you that's all these urges, but like, what's different about the human being is you're not beholden to the urge, theoretically. You know, you don't have to act on a feeling or emotion or an instinct or a passion. It doesn't mean that the passion's bad, but you don't have to act on it. And one of the things that fasting does, fasting isn't for your body, it's for your mind, because it's training your mind the discipline of, I don't need to act on this instinct. You know, that's what fasting does. And so, and to wrap up your Ouroboros thing, is it's kind of this Orthodox idea of everything is the light of God, is the light of creation, and you're either oriented in harmony with that, which feels like fire as or trial or suffering, or as purification, because you're aligned with it. It's like the sword that takes on the aspect of the fire. So like, it doesn't stop being a sword, but it's the fire and the light is added to the sword. So it's like the glowing sword. Or you can be in opposition to that, where it melts you away and destroys you. And so, like, all that exists is the light of creation, is the light of God. You know, every good gift comes down from the Father of heavenly lights, who doesn't change like shifting shadows, James. But like, if you are opposed to that, reality feels like hell. But if you are aligned to that and accepting of it, and if you receive it as a gift, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, doesn't mean that it's not painful, but it strengthens you.
Yeah.
And it transforms you into something that you never thought you were. And so, like, I think there's one reality. I really do think there's one reality. And so it's either in your alignment to that reality or your opposition to that reality. So in that sense, when I say nothing changes and everything changes, if all of humanity came into alignment with reality, we would live in the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
It would be the kingdom of God,
Yeah,
but nothing would change.
Yeah. Yeah, and that connects
But
with
everything would.
Yeah. Yeah, and that connects with what you were saying about like sin almost, or not sin, but like the body and the animal instincts, such that like animals don't like sin in the way that we can.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like creation is like the kingdom of God is here, and basically we're the only thing that's like fucking it up,
Mhm.
or just like kind of unable to abide where we are, or something like that. And also, and that's kind of the open circle as well. It's like, because when you're saying that when you're aligned, then I think about that as like that's when you can encounter the real, and the real is like this terrible beauty that is
Mhm.
in the middle, and that is, and that's how I think of the open circle, is that like when we are aligned, then this hell world that you're kind of describing there becomes we recognize it in a fuller way, which is that, oh, we are actually in the kingdom, basically, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's this communion with the real, which becomes possible, but it's still that you're in creation. It's like there is still a closeness, because you haven't like ascended like Enoch or something, you're still, but there is this communion between heaven and earth, which is possible. It's so beautiful. I really love that image
Yeah.
of the open circle and stuff. Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, so Hezi's here, but he seems to have disappeared. So maybe he's getting things
Yeah.
figured out. I was gonna add, well, and this is it's how I talk about it. It's also the unity behind all distinction. So another thing Sam asked at the very end, which was great from this Father Bear talk, is he said he just asked Father Bear to talk about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And Father Bear said, it's been a while. I wanted to actually go back and just read through the Genesis account, because one of the things that Father Bear talked is he said, one of the weird things about this poetic thing that is Genesis is that it talks about the tree of life of the knowledge of good and evil, or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. But there's one tree in the garden at the center of the garden. So it talks about two trees, but there's one tree at the center. And so he says the way that he understands that then is there's this tree and there's this tree. So it's the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is and this is related to his idea of the fall, which he says the fall isn't so much a fall from, as it's in like a past sense. You're not falling from the past, but you're falling almost from the future. It's
Yeah, I like
it's
that.
your call of becoming truly human.
Yeah, I like that that way of that visual.
Yeah.
Dang, we lost Hezi, dude.
We did. And I think I'm just gonna call it, because I gotta go. And but dude, let's okay, so I finally had my randos talk. So for people out there, here's a plug for Randos United. I did talk to Sam Spencer, who was here earlier. And it was a great talk. I loved that. It was great talking to that guy. I'd love to talk to him more. And Chris was going to come chat because he has thoughts on all my political stuff, no doubt. Because he said something earlier, like he said, "Yeah, justice," and I said, "Chris, come on." I feel like responding to Chris, and this seems like a hubristic thing to say, but like Jesus talking to the disciples, like, "How long have I been with you?" Like, I'm not anti-justice. Don't say I'm anti-justice. Like, I talk about George McDonald's justice sermon all the time. That's like one of my bingos. So I believe in justice. Okay, let's give Hezi's coming back. Let's give Hezi the final word. No pressure. No pressure, brother.
It's the final word?
Yeah.
That's it? After this, you're shutting down?
That was the plan.
Oh, man. First of all, Jonathan, how are you doing?
Good, man. Nice to see you. How you doing?
Thank God. Doing well. Well, I guess just on the two things you guys were discussing. One, with regards to the Leviathan, there's different interpretations. I mean, there's also the Leviathan. If you look at the verses, it's two different kinds of snakes. One has this metal back. One is breathing fire. There's also a whole female and male version of the Leviathan. But specifically, the battle between the behemoth and the Leviathan, the interpretation I appreciate the most is that the Leviathan should be seen as sort of unchecked nature, or like the tov vavohu. And our job is, and this is something that many religious people are scared of is to look at nature not as something that we necessarily need to transcend, but rather something that we need to upgrade and sanctify, right? We have it in a very small version anytime we eat something, right? I'm taking an apple and I'm eating it, and I'm then basically I am sanctifying and elevating all those elements of that apple through a human and what I could do with it, right? Same thing with the animal, if I'm doing it properly, right? The hunter is actually there and he hunts and is going to be for the next year. In Judaism, we understand that would be like the animal is willing to die for that purpose, because that is like sort of like a noble cause, sort of the circle of life. And when we look at the Leviathan and nature in general, we have to realize how all elements of nature need to ultimately be elevated. And then it goes from holy to holy of holies. And that's, in a certain sense, one interpretation of the Leviathan. But again, we could go very deep into that concept. Secondly, with regards to you guys were having a discussion about sort of like the animalistic portion of the man, and I mentioned in the comments, well, that's really sort of what the story of Icarus is coming to teach us, right? There's the Libris, which is life, and all of us have this issue, which we're half man, half minotaur, right? And like there's this animal in me that I can't transcend. Comes the Greeks and says, if you use the intellect, right, you could fly, and then you'll be able to remove yourself from this Libris. Now, where Daedalus gets it right, he knows that you can't go further than the sun, right? So he tells Icarus, like, be careful, because if you try to see what's behind these ideas we have, you might end up burning yourself. In Judaism, the attitude is a little different with regards to we believe we're being invited on eagle's wings, in a certain sense, to go as high as we want. God is telling us, and this has to do with revelation. We're not scared to go close to the sun, because we believe that behind the sun, it's not a mystery. Rather, we know that these values have been told to us and these ethics have been given to us by God, right? So that allows us, in a certain sense, to rely that we could keep on flying higher, and try to transcend that animalistic part of us. But that doesn't mean we should. That doesn't mean we should deny the fact that the Minotaur is us ultimately. But like, again, that could go very different directions. And if you need to go, we could go.
Well, so I want to play something funny, because you use this example of you're like eating the apple. And so like if I had my branding on point, I would have this clipped, but Chad sent this to me again from the old, and this is like so this is an old school. When was this from? 3 years ago. So when Chad was doing a new news episode came out, like a corner news thing, but this one's my favorite. So if you look up BOM news episodes E6, but like Chad sent me this one and this was me talking about, I think, mammonistic knowing versus Eucharistic knowing. And I talk about eating an apple. So I'm just going to play it because it's so funny. It's fantastic. Okay, here we go.
Thanks for saying all that, Hezzy. That was interesting.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Tell me if you guys can hear this.
I've never considered.
Or you could say like mammonistic knowing versus Eucharistic knowing. When you're just like
define those for somebody that doesn't know what you mean.
So Eucharistic
Give me
knowing
definitions.
would be eating an apple, and when you eat an apple, for it to actually give your body energy and become part of you, you have to digest it down, and some of your stomach sloughs off, and there's a give and there's a take. There's a dance. There's a digestive dance that happens between you and the apple in order for that to incorporate into your body, and that's part of communion proper in the Eucharist, is like Christ becomes part of you through the act of eating.
Well, I'm going to have to chew on that one for a while. Also, this.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's a huge. This. I mean, this is debatably like the center of the whole thing in some sense. It's like with the hosts of hosts, and this is what they did even before Christianity. They would hold the barley up or the wheat or whatever at the harvest time, and it would be, celebrating our connection to the agricultural cycles and stuff like that. That's very neato. Also, what you were saying about the half man, half animal thing, that was reminding me of this image of the centaur, of the centaur, and Sagittarius is the centaur, but even just the centaur in general, this idea of like, aiming at what he's aiming the bow at. Interestingly, in the actual sky, if we look up into the heavens, the centaur is aiming right into the galactic center in Sagittarius. Kind of cool. But I think in general, like, I think that was even used in the Gospel of Mark, perhaps, or just other places, in terms of this image of the centaur being kind of like similar to the Minotaur, as you were saying, in a sense.
But with proper orientation, from what I'm understanding from you, that's more of like a noble. I mean, you could also see the flip over there, right? In the centaur, the intellect, the mind, is still the human mind. It's the lower part that is still animalistic, which is always the dance we're doing. So that to me would sound like that's a better orientation. That's an interesting take. Do we have time for one more thing, Luke? Okay, so
go ahead.
Just with regards to the apple, I mentioned this around this corner before, but a good example of the relationship, let's say, with let's say the animals, is the story of Elijah and the prophets, the false prophets of Baal, right? So they come and say, let's basically have a sacrifice off, right? Who's God going to accept? And on Elijah, it's like full of water, and their altar is like all decked out. And here comes the two, and the Midrash tells us they're brothers. These two brother ox come, basically, and they bring it to Elijah. And the Midrash says that Elijah's bull goes willingly, and the bull for the false prophets is giving them a problem. He won't move forward. And Elijah goes and starts communicating with their ox, and he says, like, what's the deal? And the ox says, it's not fair. Like, your bull is being sacrificed for like a noble purpose, and I'm being used for like these false prophets. Like, I don't want to do this. So Elijah tells them that, I understand what you're saying, but even disproving the prophets of Baal is still a noble cause in God's eyes. And then the bull then goes willingly. And it's to teach us again that if it's done properly, if it's for a noble cause, if it's for the right reason, which is very different than us mass producing burgers today, then the animal understands, I guess, sort of in the circle of life sort of way, understands its purpose. And it's very important for us to definitely, as we move forward technologically with all these things, whether it's printing food or even as far as extending life, right? Longevity, whether it's through cloning or whether it's through genetics. So you could still look at these things, and there's rabbis that attest to this, that, the resurrection of the dead, is that miraculous, or is that miraculous through man? Like, can we develop a technology that allows us to do that? And then the question is, are you using that for Mammon, or are you using it, in your words, for the Eucharist? And that is a tremendous amount of responsibility on us. And the same thing with Jonathan Peugeot was talking about this once, about the AI sages. Currently, the AI sages are in Silicon Valley, and they're all doing microdosing. The AI sages, I think Jonathan Peugeot would be interested in, are like, monks like on the top of the mountain that are trying to figure out the AI. And this power is slowly but surely is coming into our hands. Like, even with the ChatGPT, are you using that to fundamentally destroy, or are you doing that to build?
Yeah, no, these are great thoughts, Chezi.
For sure.
We need to, sometime you and I should talk more about technological stuff, because I know you're a little more, I mean, everything that you just said I think is wonderful, but you're more bullish on, I'm still a little Paul Kingsnorthy Luddite, like.
It's crazy. I had brought up Leviathan because that's what I was talking about in this conversation that I just had, and the other main topic in that conversation was about AI and like how these connect. So it's crazy that like like this whole topic of technology and like what does it mean to have a right relationship with the technological and stuff, like that's exactly I think I agree that it's super interesting, and like there's I'm also on the fence a bit, Luke. Like I tend to be, it's like AI, let's just throw the whole thing away, but that's what I was talking about. I was talking with Owen, just like I do imagine it being, redeemed in the end, but it's hard to tell like what exactly it will look like. But I thought, the stuff that you were saying there, Hezi, I think that's really helpful in that respect. It's like, it's basically teleology, right? It's like, is it serving the will of God, or, and like, yeah.
What's hard to know with technology though is it's like this gets at that, like, art is fundamentally opposed to idolatry. Can technology be art? Can it be artistic? Because otherwise, like, the problem with
Can you repeat that, Luke?
They used to be the same word, right? Like,
yeah. No, I agree. So, like, can technology be artistic? Because Graham Pardon in his Northwest, where he quoted this guy, where he said art is by its very nature opposed to idolatry. And I think that's true. And to your point, Jonathan, I think that's valid too. It's artisan type thing, art, and how does that differ from techne, and like where are those lines? In the way that I understand them, is art is simultaneously emanating and emergent, where it's not, because propaganda is too much emanation. It's too much head. Like, you have an intended goal that you want to do with this thing that you're creating. You have a known end, a known telos instead of a mystical telos. Whereas art does not have that. Art is emergent in as much as it's emanating, like people talk about this really well, like the story. Like, if you're trying to write a story, it's the difference between Dostoevsky and Ayn Rand,
I actually don't know. I'm not very well read in this respect.
Can I comment about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Luke, very interesting thread that I want to jump on for a second, but so I mentioned this in the earlier stream this morning with Jacob, but it's very relevant here. We are told that when prophecy, towards the end of the Second Temple, and definitely after the destruction of the temple, prophecy leaves us. And one interesting point with regards to prophecy leaving us is the fact that we're also told by our sages that when prophecy left us, so did the inclination for idol worship. And the reason that's left us both prophecy and idol worship is because the imaginal was no longer necessary. And you look at Ezekiel talking about the chariot, that is someone, a prophet, and Maimonides and other sages talk about this as well, which is prophecy is utilizing the force, so to speak, or the imaginal in proper orientation. Now, we see this also in biology today, where we take very complex ideas and we tell a story about them in order for us to try to understand what we're talking about. Now, for over 2,000 years, definitely in the Jewish tradition, we dove into our books and transformed Judaism into a very, very legalistic / heady sort of experience. One where it's almost impossible to imagine something new into it. And we don't even realize how lucky we are that we could have these, abstract conversations, but we have to realize those abstract conversations are sort of built into our toolkit today, and we don't really imagine anymore. We just have all these concepts that are all very heady that we could discuss. And part of the return of prophecy is the return of the imaginal. And part of that, definitely with regards to the Jewish perspective, and also why I love the TLC, it's because it requires from all of us to speak to people on the fringe and from the outside, because they can elucidate to us a new story, a new imagination. And so, for example, for the Christians here, I would hope talking to the Jews allows for new perspectives or new ideas to come in, which allows you to imagine new and move forward. And same for the Jews. There's a discussion from the people from the outside, which I don't necessarily need you to turn Jewish. Rather, I need you to share your experience so I could imagine again. And I could then take Judaism / Christianity / all the other legitimate religions, we'll call them, into the next phase. So I don't know if it's necessarily, if, Plato was very against the artists because like that was very connected to the senses. And he wanted to stay in this heady place. So I think the artist actually is always playing with idolatry. It could very quickly turn into that.
Playing
on
with,
the other
yeah.
hand, it's necessary.
Yeah. So that's funny. It's funny. This is why these conversations are so fun. Everything you just said, I think, is great. And it's one thing I wanted to actually close with and talk to you about. And then I'm just going to, Chad's here now. So then I'll let you guys just talk and I'm going to leave. But the last thing I'll say is that one of the other things that that Vesper Stamper spoke about with PBK in this members only video. Look at that sweet, sweet toilet. Skippity toilet. Is that they were talking about Orthodoxy, and they said that really up until Constantine, I'm going to mute you, Chad. Up until Constantine and the Christianity's empire, which is back to all this Christian civilization stuff, is that it was just known as the way. It wasn't even called Christianity, but really what it was there were two schools of Judaism that were just side by side. Christianity wasn't even thought of as, it was thought of as Judaism. It was just a different kind of Judaism. And so I mean, I don't know what this TLC thing is. I don't know what this friendship thing is between you and me. I like you a lot. And I almost wonder, like, maybe we're shooting too low in trying to go. We're trying to go back. We talk about the first schism in Christianity, right? And the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church and the Oriental Orthodox. Maybe let's even go further back. Let's get back to like reuniting Christianity and Judaism.
I'm a fan of that.
Now you're talking, baby. Well,
I just posted that. I just posted that clip not too long ago, talking about the new song and the third temple, right? And like the whole idea there was that like the 144,000 by Luke, 144,000 as the Jews, right? And so eventually there should be some sort of like, recognizing that we're all participating in a grander story or something like that, right? I don't know. I love having you around, Hezi. I think you're a super valuable and important kind of member in these spaces. Yeah.
I appreciate that, really, honestly, and I think this is. I mean, I honestly do believe that as a rabbi that I really like has said, and I used this quote before, which is, we both can't be Israel, but we both realize that we are two trees that are being nourished from the same spring, and we are like, how does he say it? Like brothers looking for each other in the field. And while there's always a left hand and the right hand, and they're not the same, nevertheless, they could both, if oriented properly, could fold into each other and hold hands. And that is part of this journey. And I think it requires both religions, both traditions to look back at their sources. It requires both traditions to realize where and how, I don't want to say reform can happen, but rather potentially go back to different versions of communication. And but that's, we all know that's very difficult. Sometimes we forget that we are very blessed to be little magical place. Unfortunately, the world is not ready yet for all these conversations. But slowly but surely, I believe that we'll have our day in the sun.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah. The whole thing about art and techne is super numinous to me. Like, I think there's stuff going on there that it's probably best to save it. Or I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the energy to go all into it, but just that whole idea of like the redemption of art or something like that. It's like, or the difference between, you kind of made a distinction between like techne and art, right? In a way, or I'm not. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I
mean,
don't have
you could see
anything.
this
Yeah.
in.
I don't have anything particular. It's just.
Can you hear me?
It's just. Yeah. Sorry. I think there was a bit of like.
Oh.
Oh, you're breaking up now. I can't hear you now.
Traveling in like these back roads, but
That's you. Oh, I can hear you a little bit now. I don't know. I think we might have lost Hizzy here. Dang.
the
Oh, you seem to be back now. Now you seem to be back. Oh, man. I love techne, artistic techne. We can't hear you, Hezzy. Thing. How's it going, Chad? Nice. I don't know if I can unmute Chad here. I don't think I can. Well, here we are, y'all.
I can unmute. It's just I'm hammering, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Probably not too good on people's ears.
Yeah, maybe we should call it.
All right.
Oh, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Glad to meet you. Enjoyed.
Got here just in time. We were just about to. I think we were just about to shut it down because Chad's a hammer in. Hezzy has lost connection, but I'm glad you hopped in, dude. How's it going? I watched your conversation with Luke. I watched a lot of stuff, so it's hard for me to kind of draw memories from it. But
No worries.
Yeah, how you been?
Good. You were just talking about art and techne, and that's an area I'm really trying to make more sense of. So I know you said you were maybe feeling a little too tired to delve into it now, but maybe
I'm down to try.
Okay.
I'll probably go in like maybe 20 minutes or so, but yeah, I mean, I think that's because I don't know. I think it connects to, I don't know how long you were listening, but all the stuff about Leviathan and like correct insofar as like the garments of skin is connected with Leviathan, and the garments of skin is technology, and that's kind of how I think about technology being redeemed in the end, is like through this transfiguration of the garments into garments of light, such that they are like the New Jerusalem. It's the technical giving glory to the natural in the middle and almost bringing it out, like adding to it. And I think that's connected with art in some way, because it's like using technology to reveal the glory that is in, or something. But I don't know. I don't really have a.
Is the mirror art an actual mirror? I've been thinking a lot about living in a world with mirrors and the ridiculous, kind of like the ridiculous reality of that.
I think when it comes to like whether or not something is art, it has to do with the like the metaphysics of the intention or something like that. It's like everything can be done in an artful way, but sometimes things are not intended to be art, you know. And it's like, so I don't know. I think if somebody makes a mirror and they're trying to make a good mirror and they're trying to like do it well, I think that's kind of an artful thing. But I don't know. I think maybe there's something about the intention, but I don't know. I would tend to think of it, you know, it could be a mirror. It could be an art. It could be art. I don't know.
I was thinking about how you were just. Someone mentioned something about like technology being used. Like, how can you use AI for good, or can you use technology for good, or can things be redeemed in that way? And it just reminded me of the whole concept of the swords being beaten into plowshares, the spears being turned into pruning hooks. sort of this eschatological vision of it is a technology that, I mean, this is nuclear energy, this is dynamite, there's like, it kind of lives in this balance of, I wouldn't know if say it's always a neutral space, but it's like it can be used for good or for evil. It can, and being the kind of people who can rightly handle it, who can transform it into something that is ultimately redemptive and contributes to the well-ordered cosmos, I think is the aim, you know.
Yeah.
Even it's like even like idea of like perception and what can you even see. So I happen to work in a space which is all about helping people shape technology into a more whatever user friendly or efficacious solution. Typically the web technologies, but that butts into all kinds of different spaces. And what you end up facing a lot of times is folks who are so absorbed with the technology itself, they can't break out of that myopia. They're kind of just focused on, this is so amazing, look what it can do, and they're not able to get to the point of like, well, what is the actual progress? Let's not be focused on the down here on the earth of what's happening, but look up and see into the heavens, that we can draw upward, like how glorious it should be. And especially in the kind of the tech space that the circles I frequent, there's an aversion to sort of the divine, the vertical on the on the cross. There's an aversion to looking vertically up into the heavens. It's sort of like the techno-utopian materialist world is very it's very earthly, I guess you could say.
That was reminding me. Also, welcome, Chris. Nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. Nice to meet you.
No, nice to meet you too.
Cool. What you were saying there, Sam, it reminds me of Marshall McLuhan on The Medium is the Message. Almost like the stuff down here is the medium, and the stuff up here is the message. And the way that he talked about it was that basically the message is kind of like how it's actually transforming you in something like that. So it's like, it's not about what the text says, it's about the fact that you're reading text and it's framing your consciousness, you know? So it's like the tech bros are perhaps not thinking about like the spiritual implications of the technology or something such that, and it reminds me of how he also said that in Christ, the medium and the message are the same. There is no difference. And I think about that as like the embodied person of Christ, or, maybe it's more of this like second coming ethereal Christ or something. But I tend to think about that as like meeting Christ face to face. That's the medium and the message are same. You're seeing, God, the face of God has been revealed in Christ. So it's that almost like the techne, like, because I also think about, I don't know, there's so much, it's hard to, what am I trying to say here? That the in-person is like, that's where the medium and the message are more close or something. And but even there we can use the technology incorrectly or something, and it can become a closed system. And like, so I don't know, that's kind of a bunch of random words, but this idea of how the communication technologies are like metaphysical. I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here.
Well, this is kind of getting at why I wanted to jump in, because it does have me. We're using technique, techne. This is all language that comes from Elul, and I think I've always been of the thought it's like, well, if I just put the good intentions into technique or technology, then we can like use it for good. But Elul was always making the point, and it's kind of hard to catch, but it's this idea that the technique is almost ambivalent to human morals and values. It's not about, because it's technique that conditions us. Like, we don't condition the technique. And because technique has its own value structure, its own rationality to it that plays out, and so it doesn't quite have like it's autonomous in its values and its ideas, and it forms a system that prioritizes like the means over the ends. So in that way, like I think that's where in the corner we have this concern about AI and combining with Leviathan. You know, we were talking about Leviathan earlier, and I know that the stream originally, as Luke was posting it, was supposed to have like a political valence, and so when we talk Leviathan and we're in that context, I'm thinking of like Thomas Hobbes, right, writing Leviathan, kind of at the birth of the liberal order, and like, if we're thinking about Leviathan in its biblical context, is it more of like a natural kind of beast that's older, or is it something that is combined with our technology? Because as Hobbes uses it, and this is where it kind of applies to Luke, because I think his worry is that he doesn't want politics to devolve into like the war of all against all. Well, the whole reason Hobbes wrote in defense of Leviathan essentially is that like that was also Hobbes's fear too, because he had just lived through basically, you know, Puritan Christian nationalism and, you know, the Cromwellian Republic and the English Civil War and all this kind of stuff, and he's writing as the generation after that, like, hey, we need to bring a little bit of Leviathan, a little bit of order here. So and he's also thinking about the state as a technological thing. So he's kind of like optimistic about like accelerating governance to like a system that can be ordered in like this reactive way. But I think our worry is that like we all worry about the AI God, and I think it does help to use this idea of an agency of its own, like of a personality, that power and principality, rather than Lowell's language that seems like very technical and almost mechanistic. And I think maybe he uses that because it's the point he wants to make, that technology does have this mechanistic logic that conditions us. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want to go from there, but maybe it's just something to chew on. Is there something I'm missing? Maybe, Hezi, you tend to be more optimistic about the use of these AI tools and techniques, and I kind of go back and forth. Like, I guess it depends on the day, and I feel like probably a lot of you guys would feel the same way, because we could see how it can spin out of control. But we also, like, even in the corner, we try to use at least the logic of the algorithms, you know, against itself. And I think that's what makes TLC a more open silo, I guess. There's a lot more in and out.
One thing that a question that Peugeot brought up some time ago with this conversation, I can't remember who it was with exactly. I think it was Vervaeke and Jordan Hall, possibly way back. When he said like he's struggling to even answer the question of why do we even have it, you know, what, and so like I think that's where I think like the Leviathan is kind of hiding underneath that question, because I don't think there's any real great answer to the question. Yeah, I mean, like, not only why do we go to the moon, right? Like, why did we do that? What was that for? Is it just merely for exploration purposes? Is it So I think that's the real Leviathan. If you can answer that question sufficiently, then I guess I don't know. There's something to the question which is very, very important, and for me. And then as you guys were talking, I'm like dealing with this hammer and this chisel, and I'm pulling this stuff out, and like you guys are mentioning order and stuff, and I'm just thinking about like how this is actually translating to my actual job right now. Like, like I have these tools, and there's an order to things. Like I don't just come in like the job doesn't require me just demoing the whole walls. Like I had to cut the top of this base so that I don't destroy the wall further up because I got to put a different base on there. So there's constraints there that are keeping everything in order. And yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Hey,
thank God
guys.
for those tools and that technique. I mean, Hezi, you said something like, we always need a little bit of Leviathan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
like-
missed a lot of what you were
Yeah.
saying, and I'm sorry about
It was so good.
the reception. But to your question about, like, as far as Hobbes' Leviathan, so biblical Leviathan, well, order would be the behemoth. And now we are told that at the end, at the eschaton, so to speak, the behemoth and the Leviathan, they fight with each other, and the righteous get to observe this battle. And ultimately, after the Leviathan is killed, they sit and have a meal in a tent built, made out of the Leviathan's skin. And that is to show that, like, now that it's been vanquished, order can be set upon this sort of tov vavohu nature, and it could be elevated. And that's why the righteous are enjoying that, because they no longer feel that tension that we feel today between the behemoth and the Leviathan. Just one more note about the technology. So we have two lineages, right? We have Cain and we have Seth, right? Abel obviously is killed. Now, Seth, we're known as like the godly men, and but they don't do anything, right? Enoch disappears, and Noah, he just takes care of his family in the flood, but they're not innovators. On the other hand, the lineage of Cain is building weapons, building technology, building tools. Now they use it for the wrong things, but
No, he's breaking up. This was so good. We don't want to miss this. Oh no,
they're clearly
breaking up.
They're clearly.
Nope. Damn.
Damn it.
Okay, I think you might be fine. I think you might be fine again. No. Dang, the tradition of Cain, bro. Cain's family got to step it up. Make these tools better.
Yeah, it sucks that we're missing all that, because I might be missing the trajectory of what Hezi is explaining. But from what I understand, the tools that they were making were the tools of war. So I don't know, like the intentionality. It's like, oh, they just like didn't dominate through war, right, or something. Like, I think that's the problem with the technology. It's weird that in the story, the righteous ones are the ones that don't do any technology. Like, that seems to lend towards a Lowell's critique of like worrying about being skeptical of relying on techne to solve our problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it does connect. I mean, it does connect to the rocket going to the moon, because, okay, we know who ran NASA after the war. It was Werner von Braun, who was the head of the Nazi V2 rocket program. And so the technology, the Nazis are making V2 rockets in underground bunkers with literal Jewish slave labor, like absolutely horrific. They're doing it for the Nazi regime to win the war, right? Dominate all of Europe. Bad, right? Okay, they used it for the wrong stuff. They even acted out their badness in how they did it. So did we did we redeem, or did Wernher von Braun redeem himself by using the V2 rocket technology to get to the moon? Because that's a good aim, whether it's for like reigniting a vision of pioneering exploration and going beyond our limits and all this kind of thing. You know, it does provide a different vision of what technology can do. And this is 20 years after the horrors of World War II. So, I mean, we're still stuck, basically. I don't know if we're ever going to like complete the system or, you know, square the circle. It's like we're still stuck in this back and forth conversation. But it seems like it's ramping up, right? Because now we got nukes. Now we got AI. Do we have nuke systems attached to AI? What happens when the logic, you know, gets beyond the logic of the system, gets beyond human control? Because if the machine conditions us, you know, we're in a bad spot.
What's can you just tell me the author, how you're spelling it? Ellul, Chris?
Yes, Ellul.
Okay.
And this is from his book, The Technological Society, which is a beastly tome. But,
Yeah.
I mean, he takes 100 pages to explain technique.
Yikes.
That's it, and then he goes a few hundred pages more. But, I mean, he also has he has some shorter things. He has one on propaganda that's great.
Sure.
The formation of men's minds, kind of the same propaganda as the technology.
My my cursory big picture from Peugeot and Lord of Spirits stuff that I've taken in terms of technology is that there is some entrance of this techne into the world that is for malevolent means. It's too early. We're not mature enough to handle it. Like maybe there's demonic forces, maybe there's some sort of spiritual beings that are helping us get access to things. It's like giving a child a chainsaw. You know, it's like,
yeah,
hey, this is a cool technology. Hopefully you cut your arm off with it, is what the demons are thinking. But eventually the child is able to mature and handle it well, and now they can do good things with it. And so I think every generation faces the challenge of how do we tame this technological force that is now in the world. And that's, I think that's, we've talked before, maybe, I don't know who has mentioned, but like, what does it look like to be a saint in the technological age or the internet age? What does it look like to use these things rightly? My kind of example in literature of this is Aragorn. So he sees the Palantir. So first of all, you get Pippin, big picture. So Sauron has the Palantir, and he's corrupted through it by accessing Sauron. You can do all kinds of amazing things in it. He thinks he's going to rule the world and bring it under his control, but of course Sauron, the dark force, is too strong for him. And then you've got Denethor, who goes crazy. He's got access to the Palantir, and it makes him go mad. Pippin touches it and gets very injured. He's like wounded on a deep soul level. And Gandalf is like, I'm not even going to touch this thing. Like, he covers it. He's like, don't let me near. I don't want to even touch this. But Aragorn, of course, he uses the hands of the king, or the hands of healing. He's able to actually heal Pippin. And then he's also able to take the stone and become the master of the stone, because by wrestling, of course, with the Dark Lord and revealing himself, even that, he's using it in a way that's like even a little bit tricky. Like, it's not, he's deceiving the Dark Lord in a way. So he's able to master that by his years and years of maturity and faithfulness and manly sort of integrity and all of these things. But that's kind of, I think, maybe the literary example of what it looks like in the.
Yeah, I really like that, because Sauron and his armies are this vast technological beastly force. I think we're all a lot like Pippin, just
exactly
the way we all. Here we are staring through our mirrored stones, speaking to each other and reading and misreading, and you know, it's Pippin's use of the technology is just like this naive curiosity.
It's kind of what happened with me in psychedelics.
Right, yeah.
Like,
naive curiosity and enchantment and ignorance of what it is, is like, and so but his naivete, made Sauron miss Frodo, right? Like he started looking in all the wrong places. So, the technology, it's like manipulated without implying any intentionality to it. And yeah, it's interesting that Aragorn's able to use like subterfuge and trickery, things that we would think are, wrong or a sin, in order to confound the enemy, use its powers against it. But of course, the trick there is that, like, the real object of technology was the ring, and the righteous thing to do was to destroy it. So this makes me think of that Batman movie. I think it's Dark Knight, where basically Wayne Enterprises has built this massive surveillance state in Gotham, right?
And they destroyed it at the end,
yeah. And he gives Batman the keys to it, and Batman's like, I'm gonna use it for good. I'm gonna save the people on the boat. I'm gonna find the Joker. I'm gonna figure it out, and then shut it down. And he does it, right? He does it at the end, and it's also where he's like, he becomes the bad guy for the sake of the story of Gotham, right? He like lays himself upon the altar of the narrative.
Yeah, I've got Luke Thompson in the chat telling me to wrap it up. Want to get everybody's last words, particularly Hezi, because I feel like he's been like just charging up, like something's gonna.
No.
But also, if I may toss in my last word, what you're saying there, I think you even used the word tower. It reminded me of the Tower of Babel is this technical image, and you also had this. You mentioned this idea of the timeliness of it, and like whether or not it's, we're just not ready for like the Palantir. It's like approaching it in the right way at the right time. And it's like, I almost think about, because the technology there was the language. And this is where I think this is super interesting, because language is like the most powerful technology in a sense, I think. And when we get it right, it's like everything, it fixes everything else in some way. And it's that once they had the language together, then they could do anything, but it's just that maybe it wasn't the right time. I think maybe now is the time where we have the universal language and we come together in some way. Yeah, but Hezi, and last words from everybody, please. Yes.
Man, that was frustrating. Okay, so proper use of technology. I'm going to use the Tower of Babel, the Tabernacle, and the Urim and Tumim as an example of how technology needs to be used properly. So God comes to our boy Mo and tells him, all right, build me a tabernacle. And Moses goes to Bezalel and says, all right, be an awesome architect, use your skills, your artistic skills, your technological skills, and build me this tabernacle. Now, what's interesting is Bezalel is from the tribe of Judah, and he has a helper building the tabernacle who is from the tribe of Dan, which is known as the weakest tribe. We'll get back to that in a moment. Now, Bezalel finishes building this tabernacle, right? He hands, but he doesn't build it, right? He says, hey, Moses, here is your Lego set based on the specifications you asked for, but I have no idea what any of these concepts mean. Like, I just built the technology. I didn't infuse it with meaning. You are the one that told me how to build this, so you are the one that's going to have to actually put it together. So now Moses takes these abstract ideas, which through technology he brought down into a physical form, and now he's building it together. And we know it's successful because after the tabernacle is built, it is filled with God's glory. There isn't even room for Moses over there. It's filled with God's glory. Now, the reason I mentioned these two tribes is because in order to do so, it required that all the tribes of Israel, or for all intents and purposes, all the population is included, from the strongest until the weakest. Everyone has to be part of this in order to it actually be oriented properly. Now we see this again with the Urim V'Tumim, this mystical technology that you could go to the high priest and ask questions to, and we know different versions. Joshua uses it, and we know that other leaders use this as well. However, the Urim V'Tumim is on the chest plate that has all the names of all the tribes on it. And again, this is indication that in order to do so properly, it requires the involvement and taking into consideration everyone of the population, or at the very least, like the tribes you have. And lastly, when it comes to the Tower of Babel, here you can say, okay, Chezi, but they are working together, right? So isn't this good? The problem there is, I don't know the exact translation in English. I'm translating from Hebrew. Safachat dvarim achadim, right? One language, and the things where everything was one. And you could look at that as being a unification, but that is sort of a contained speech, which is you're a builder and you weld and you mix this, and that's what everyone does. And that kind of unification is stifling. And we know from Zephaniah, we're supposed to come back to that with pure speech, right? It's not supposed to be unified speech. Rather, it's supposed to be diverse speech, which allows you then to unify. Then you could build again. But it needs to include everyone. And if it's just the way I say, if I'm the project manager and I say, okay, when we talk about something heavy means one thing. We now live in a world, let's say the good that postmodernism gave us, which shows us that words are malleable and concepts are malleable to a certain extent. Obviously, we could go off the reservation, but the idea is that we need to include more diversity or include more of the thought in order to allow technology to be used properly. So those are three different examples of how technology can be sanctified, can be elevated if taking everything and everyone into consideration.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm sure we could keep talking for like hours and hours, but maybe just, I want to get Luke's trying to wrap this up. So maybe anybody have some last thoughts, maybe tying into what Hezi said at all, or?
I'm probably going to have to go back and watch on the YouTube stream that last bit, because it turned into robot sounds, and then I finally heard Hezi say, and those are three examples of how we can do it. Like, it finally, like, you were going to answer my question that I'm trying to figure out for myself. So I'll just go back and listen to it. I'm sure it was great. I
highly suggest you do. I think it's very deep stuff that's being tossed around here, for sure.
Yeah. Gus says hi.
Anything from Sam?
I gotta go feed him, so. His name is Gus. Gus.
I'll catch you guys later.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, thanks for chatting, y'all.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man. And yeah, nice to have you. All right.
Sorry, my
Sam, you got nothing else?
There, but
I think Hezi's last word was great. Thanks. I'll leave it at that.
We got Tayo, last second Tayo. All right. Okay. All right, we're gonna sign off. Thanks for watching, y'all. Be sure to catch the next Luke Thompson /Grail Country live stream.